Welcome to the Hagen-Renaker channel. Today, we learn about what happened after the closure of the Hagen-Renaker San Marcos factory and its impact on model horse collectors. Hello and welcome, Heather Wells, purveyor of The Horse You Want, a model horse retailer. We are looking forward to hearing your story.
My pleasure for being here. Well, I had a great friendship with Karen Grimm, and she actually got me started on Hagen-Renekers with the miniatures, the cats and dogs and all the little goodies. And my main focus was miniatures because that's what I could afford at the time. So as I progressed through learning how to collect Hagen-Renekers and what they were and identifying them, I really had no grasp of era or crispness. I didn't get what that was. So when we learned that the designer workshop line was going to be discontinued from the San Marcos plant, of course, like most of my California friends, we all ran out and tried to buy them wherever we could find them. And I was lucky enough to put some on layaway in different places. And I got a call from Karen one day, and she goes, "She won't believe what happened." And she had the ability, and she was asked by Jim Renaker if she wanted the inventory that was currently at San Marcos when they decided to quit production. So she said she loaded up her 6-horse slant and went down. Jim actually called her on the phone, said, "Are you interested in this inventory?" And when she said yes, he said, "Then come down tomorrow and get it." So all she could think of was empty the trailer. Her and her husband, Peter, popped down to San Marcos. By pop, I mean they took the hour's trip down there. And she loaded everything up, brought it back. Karen took it to her family's business, which had a meeting room, and she displayed it all in there. So she made arrangements with myself and Lonnie Keller to come look to see what she had acquired. We chose a day to go down there, and we went down, and she took us back to this room, and I was just shocked, gobstopped, awed.
As any HR collector can imagine. Oh my goodness.
Yes. I swear there was at least a 20-foot table that was not a banquet. It was more of a 4-foot wide. It had to have been 20 foot long where they held meetings and such. And that was full of Hagens. And she had tiered some of them so she could fit everything on there. And it was just totally mind-blowing. I never seen so many Hagens in one place. And she literally stopped me at the door and said, "You were going to learn about detail and crispness today." And I learned.
Is that a crash course?
Crash course, big time. There was, of course, glossies and mattes. She had some of the stragglers from the big mare. That was a special run for the lady up in Sacramento, I think it was. The Appaloosa, the Bay Appaloosa. I can't remember its name. Did it have a name?
The special run, I think, was called Appaloosa, and it was on the quarter horse mare mold. And
that's it.
Her sculpture, the sculpture has a name as the horse identity, but the Appaloosa did not. I believe it was also a part of the special run was allocated as trophy awards for a parade. Is that correct? We will fact check that.
Yeah, that one I don't know about. I do know, though, they were not numbered. The one that I purchased and the ones that she had there were not numbered. And so I knew that wasn't out of the special run that most of the Hagen-Renaker collectors purchased.
So in your crash course, can you give us an idea of how many of one mold and color there might be of something for her to tell you? Now pick the crispest one. So were there 4 metal checks? How many of something was in front of you? Just to give us a sense of scale.
Okay. Well, I know the Appaloosa for sure, because Appaloosa being my favorite breed, there was either 5 or 6 of them sitting on the table. And for the most part, they were very uniform. There was a few darker and a few lighter ones, but you could definitely tell the crispness when you see a lot, more than 1 or 2 together. Then you get to see that. Look at the face. Look at how the mold lines are on the face. Look at the nostrils. Look how clear they are. Look how they painted this rump, the spots on the rump. See how they're uniformly all there, and they're not going over the lines, and they're not faded into the blanket and stuff. They're very crisp from one side to the next side. So that kind of thing is what we worked on first. And of course, I motivated to the horses. There was also the Palomino. There was not full sets of the Palomino quarter horse family. That was also a special run.
Oh, wow.
There was pieces. And I remember there was 3 stallions, and I believe there were mares. I don't believe there were any foals at that time. And
yeah,
so
I can
that
imagine that seconds would happen, and that's why they would get the uneven set.
Exactly.
Right. There would have been some loss. Okay.
Yes. And so from the horses, we went over to the animals because there were cattle. There were lots of chicks and the 2 ducks. And of course, I'm forgetting names. The white ducks. There was 5 or 6 of the white ducks. The drake, the hen, the chicks, the dog. There was mother gooses.
Oh,
there. Cool. I mean, animals. There was lots of cats. I mean, a lot, 20 or 30 of the Siamese kittens. I should have got my book so I could name off names. The sitting Siamese kittens with the big ears that were kind of looking up, and just lots of them. There was 20 or 30, because Hagen used to use those little half case things of boxes, like the cutoff box, and it would hold 8 in a box. They didn't go all up the edge. It was just to hold them still. And just cases of those, and cases upon cases. There had to have been at least 30, 40, 50 of the unicorns that weren't complete. Oh. So they would have their bows painted, pink bows, yellow bows, and a few with bows. A few with the ribbons flying down, and some with no ribbons at all. So they would have the ribbon on the tail, but they wouldn't have the painted flyer part of the ribbon. And there was blues. Yeah. Blues, pinks, yellows. They had no gold because they weren't in the final stage.
Yep.
When they chose to shut down, production just quit like that. And it was a big plant, according to Karen. I don't know that it was as big as San Dimas, because all I have seen are pictures. But even in the few pictures that I've seen, there's a good area that they're working in. It's a deep area, yes. Lots of space. So it wasn't a small plant by any means.
It wasn't. Freeman McFarland's satellite plant. So they had one up north, and then they had opened the San Marcos plant. So it was already housing, a very popular and large pottery when Hagen-Renaker moved in. So I bet they had tons of room in there to work.
They had room, from the pictures that I'm sure you will post and the pictures I've seen, that there was plenty of room to work in there. It was not a cramped area. And the animals, I'm trying to think of all the animals that there were. I know there was ducks and the geese, and there was chickens, and there was cats. It was amazing to see the colors and everything in one spot. And that's when you have more than one, more than two, you can look at them and say, oh, okay, look at the softness of the face, the softness of the body, or look, this seam hasn't been cleaned all the way, or look how lovely all these seams are cleaned and you could hardly see it. And there was bound to be seconds in it, like you said, because there was so much there. Not only was the production ready to go, but they had a stock room, a stock already there, that not everything sells at one time. So it was still there to sell. And it was amazing. It really was. It was just walk around the table and try to pick what I wanted. And I asked Karen, I said, hey, can you make like a Black Horse Ranch credit card that I can use? It was just, she was so generous with us to share with her friends, to get a chance to see them. And then eventually she did put them up on her mail order flyers for sale.
The Black Horse Ranch mail order.
Black Horse Ranch. Black Horse Ranch mail order, yes. She continually sold Hagen's when I can go back and look and see. I mean, she sold the dragon. She sold the cattle. She sold the goats. There was a lot of goats. I remember there wasn't very many adult goats. There was a lot of kids. And a lot of the Jersey cow and a lot of the Jersey calves. By a lot, I mean 20, 25 of the calves. There was a bundle of them. And so then you could really see the painter's skill also, because it'd be light and dark, and you can't uniformly paint all the time, you know? Yeah. So there would be light and dark ones, and you would see some that were, oh, look at this, a little darker. Oh, I need a light one and a dark one. So it made it lovely to look at and see. You could really see the crispness of some molds and the painting and the final production compared to others. You had the choice to really pick and choose of what was there.
There was so much more variety than what we're used to, because that was the last time HR did true matte glazes. So you were able to see the same product in the same color in both glossy and matte side by side, which is in such numbers. I'm sure you got a much more broad cornucopia experience of all those colors.
Yes, definitely so. And the brilliance of some of them, especially like the ducks and the drake, you know, he had so much color on his body, and with the wing spread and stuff like that. That was really, really nice. Didn't have a whole bunch of those, but I know there was 5 or 6 of them at least, because I remember I didn't think I wanted that until I actually saw it up close and saw how much work really went into that piece and how lovely it was. He was just like, oh gosh, do I get matte and gloss, or do I just get one or the other? It was just really hard to choose.
That San Marcos Wings Out Mallard is definitely an important piece of like animal figurine pottery. There's a lot of work in it, and I'm sure they were not appreciated as much as they should have been for the technical work that went into those. They are gorgeous.
Exactly.
Pieces. Yes.
Exactly. And you can see where, okay, this is probably part of the breakage issues that they had, just sending them out to people and people not knowing how to handle them. Retailers, they had so much in their shops, they didn't know each individual piece, how to handle it. And I'm sure that's where breakage happened, because Hagen really stood behind their items and would replace the breakage. They had salespeople that would go out and take care of them. So they took care of their customers.
It looks good on the brand if your public appearance is an unbroken shop display. And so those reps are going to make sure that HR's best foot is forward at every retail establishment. They're going to remove, tipped over or broken items and, make sure it's the best sales point. Yeah.
Right.
Display.
There had to have been probably about 10 of the big Arab.
Naf,
the
Arabian.
Yeah, the big Arabian, the big metal checks. There was at least 10 of those too. And they were both matte and gloss. I only seem to recall the chestnut metal checks, but there had to have been some buckskins there, because I have a buckskin. So that's the only thing I can think of where I would have got it, because I had no other place to go at that time, as I wasn't collecting the designer workshop line in earnest until it quit being. And then everybody scrambled to try to get pieces, the hobbyists in Southern California, they went to all the spots where we knew Hagen-Renaker was sold. Knott's Berry Farm being one of the spots where you could go.
Yes.
And they were wiped out in a matter of days. It was just, once the news hit the hobby community, it was hard to find the DW Hagens.
And they were wise to do that, because it would be quite a few years before Hagen-Renaker ever touched a larger horse mold again. And that started with the collector series with the Jamboree Appaloosa prancing horse.
There we go.
Yeah, it was smart of them to go out there and maximize the opportunity.
Right. And I know a lot of the unicorns that didn't have the gold on them, a lot of the horns didn't survive. And Karen that's where I believe she started getting the confidence to start painting them and playing with the glazes and different stuff like that, because they were already seconds and already broke. They weren't seconds so much as they were broke because the horns were dead. Well, so she could play with them herself and not have to worry about, oh no, this is a piece that people might want.
Thank goodness for that, because that ushered in a whole nother era of model horse exploration, custom glazing, and partnerships with other potters. So that was great. I'm very happy, by the way, to have one of those custom glazes, a little cocoa brown unicorn that Karen glazed. That was the door prize or a dinner prize at your Mayhem event a few years ago in 2018.
Right.
So thank you for making that opportunity for us, because a lot of us appreciate those pieces and proudly display them.
They were fun. I know she enjoyed doing them, and she enjoyed getting the ones out that weren't broke. I know there was just a load of them, because every once in a while I'll find a box and it'll have 3 or 4 of them in there that have broken horns and such. And I believe I took them to Briarfest last year with the matching horn pieces so people could pick out the
well, that was very nice of you.
Well, hey,
all the work done.
Yes. But at one point, we matched them all, so we kind of knew. We just Scotch taped the horn onto the hip of the horse. So, look at these match. You don't have to try to find them. But it was the thought, and I asked her, I said, how did you get all this stuff in the trailer? And she's like, well, we just cleared out the floor because it already had rubber mats, and we had boxes and bubble wrap, and we just put the boxes in the floor until we had to kind of stack a little bit of them, and crossed our fingers for the drive home. That was from Shadow Hills up in the San Fernando Valley down to Escondido. So that was a drive on the freeways. And she said they were there, an afternoon, and loaded it all up and brought it back to Shadow Hills. Well, she brought it back to the business, which is just in Sunland. It was right next door to Shadow Hills. And she put it all up so she could figure out what she wanted. And that's where she had a lot of her variations in the Zara, Zilla, and
in her collection.
Yes, Amir. So she had she had whites, she had palominos, and she had the grays.
And I'm sure people are going to ask, we know she had tests that came with this purchase. She was able to find those special pieces kind of in the office and other places where she was told to gather items. So that's pretty awesome. She was able to preserve very unusual pieces of HR history.
Exactly. Jim offered them up to her. She thought she was just going in to get the stock that were on the shelves and such.
Oh, wow.
And he turned to her and said, do you want the stuff in the office? Because being the head honcho at San Marcos, Jim had special pieces in the office. So she was like, hey, if you're willing to let him go. And he's like, yeah, I'm willing. I've kept everything I want. So everything in the office is fair game for her. So she was able to acquire some pieces. And some of the stuff we had at Clinky Mayhem, a few of the things, when she passed away, she had told me, I want certain horses to go to certain places. I need to know that there are horses that are in people's hands that I know that I want them to have.
That's wonderful.
And a lot of the stuff, a lot of the Hagen-Renekers that she had that were very special to her were sent off to other people. And I kept on telling her, well, because she was very concerned that Peter would be able to afford to keep the horses that she wanted him to keep, her forever horses.
Yes.
And her way of knowing that they would be well taken care of was selling that collection. And the Hagens, of course, being valuable, it was hard for us to decide how we were going to distribute and rehome the Hagen-Renekers, the Beswicks, all the breakable things. And Jody Berkowitz and myself, I think you were in on it too, where we should do it in California. We should have an event here in California. And that was, even though it was an 8-hour trip from Nevada, where they were at the time, to California, that was the best thing for us to do, because we could show them off to people and they could pick and choose what they wanted.
Mel Vortel's dogs, those little silly cartoon
that's
dogs.
Right.
With the
Yes, they had those.
Yeah.
That was in the line, and she had some of those. I remember her bringing those home because I thought I didn't want them. And then afterwards, years later, I'm trying to find them. And I remember them at Karen's business there, because she had a lot of them there, the brown ones and the spotted ones. Now that I think back, there were dogs there.
Well, there would have been Dalmatians out the wazoo.
There was. Now that I recall, I'm glad you're shaking my memory, because I can, once we start talking about stuff, then I remember where they were sitting, the corner of the table they were all sitting on. And yes, there were dogs, because the spots are outlined.
Yes.
The spots are in the mold.
Speaking of that, bisque. Was there unfinished bisque that Karen got to adopt and bring into the hobby or practice on at home? Because I know that there were bisque of that funny Dalmatian with the spots carved.
The spots. I want to say yes, there was, because that one dog in particular, I remember she had quite a few of.
Okay.
I know that when Karen was diagnosed with cancer, her and Susan had always had a really good working relationship. And to my knowledge, Karen was the only person that Sue sold bisques to. And Karen wasn't allowed to ask for anything. The agreement that Sue and Karen had was that when Sue had extras of any bisque stock, she would box it and bill it and send it to Karen.
Yes.
So Karen actually never knew what she was getting. It was just whatever designer workshop pieces that were available for Karen to work on, because she couldn't work on small stuff because it hurt her hands too much.
That was a really mutually beneficial moment for them, where Sue was having fluctuations in DW Designers Workshop sales. She didn't know from moment to moment what thing would be ordered next or what color it would be in. So sometimes someone would pour in the casting department the mold that was ordered, but in the wrong color of slip. So then here Sue has this extra clean seamed body that she doesn't have a customer for. So that would go into all of the things that go to Karen. And she also really liked the idea of giving Karen something enjoyable that she could enjoy while she was not feeling well and while she was battling so much. So they both were
beneficial to both. It was Karen's happy place while she was going through all the treatment she was going through, and she got to experiment. And for the most part, I think she sold a few while she was still alive, but the majority of it she kept because she enjoyed painting, and she painted the colors that she liked. And I know she got a box full of Grown Ladies at one time, and Karen had quite a few colors. And if I recall, right near the end, before she passed away, she had some of those up on her website, the Black Horse Ranch website, to sell. But there was only a handful. I don't want to say there was more than 5 or 6.
They're rare, yeah.
They were very, very few and far between. but they were very much like HR colors. And Karen had that knack of being able to put a nice chestnut, a nice HR chestnut on the pieces that she was able to get that never had a chestnut. The chestnut, the taffs, the chestnut, you were like, what? Wrong color, right color, wrong horse.
But that was really an unexpected side effect of Karen buying that inventory, was all of these creative, side quests that she was able to go on. And it wasn't just like, oh, I've got some, wholesale that I can flip. It was really so much bigger, and it actually grew the Hagen-Renaker, fandom in its own way. Like, people suddenly went, oh, I can show these in custom glaze. It was really exciting. Yes.
It was lovely, and I will always thank Sue for that, having the what is the word I'm looking for? Trusting Karen to paint a nice paint job. Karen lacked a little bit in the eye department. I can always tell a Karen custom by the eyes, because she wasn't detail orientated in the eyes. She was detail orientated in the color and how it went on. But for the eyes, she needed to practice a little bit more. But it still passed the Hagen-Renaker look. So it was a great look. But I wish the eyes had been able to be a little more detailed than they are. But at least we have the pieces out there to remember Karen by, and how she so enjoyed the Hagen-Renaker product and the Hagen-Renaker colors.
That also helps us distinguish her work, and we know it is exactly Karen's, where it came from. Its pedigree isn't questionable. You know a Karen artwork by her different artifacts, and it preserves a little piece of our hobby history that way. So
exactly,
you don't just blend into the background. You be able to identify them. And I do think Sue showed a great deal of grace by including Karen in that way. So
perfect word, perfect. It really was. I think that she, gave her that nod of approval, and Karen just flourished doing that, because that was definitely her happy place while she was going through treatments and stuff. And it was a good relationship for them to have, and it speaks volumes of how deep really Sue Nikas was. She managed Hagen-Renaker well.
She was more than just a business lady. When you got to know her, there was a whole bunch of layers. Yes. So
yes.
I am also grateful for my getting to know Sue that way. The San Marcos closure, at the time, to put this into historical context, at the time in the horse hobby at least, San Marcos pieces weren't particularly valued. The emphasis was on Monrovia, but the factory eras that were more accessible, I would say, at the time, were the San Dimas and San Marcos designers' workshop pieces. And so they traded at lower prices than Monrovia Hagen-Renekers at the time, and all the way up through, I would say, the mid-90s. So from the mid-80s to the mid-90s, San Marcos didn't really have a strong following on the secondary market. And if people really put it in context and realize that it was only 5 years, that is such a collectible and short span of time for all of some of those molds were only produced at San Marcos. So we have reassessed how we value San Marcos pieces over time. But thank goodness that so much of it was rescued from going to the four winds and not being gathered into our hobby by Karen. And we have all of this preserved when it really could have just been lost.
Yes. Oh, of course. She deeply appreciated being an HR dealer. She enjoyed the DWs. She enjoyed the minis. And when she learned, when the family decided to move to Nevada. It was like, I can't be an HR dealer anymore. She pushed me finally to be an HR dealer because she had taught me how to appreciate the Hagens, how to look for the Christmas. And our own circle of Southern California people that collected Hagen-Renekers made me survive as a dealer. I wasn't just a hobbyist filling everyone's niche. There were people that wanted them. So that really helped me be a dealer and helped me in my relationship with Hagen-Renaker and Miss Sunikas, because I had a great relationship with her. I didn't get to know Jim as much as I would have liked to because they were about 90 minutes away from me and I wasn't into Hagen's as much at that time. But it was Karen's purchase of that stock that made me learn more, because there was just so much to take in. And when you're trying to learn, crispness was not even a word in my vocabulary, because we don't do that with briars. Briars are plastic and you're looking for flaws.
What? That blew my mind. You came from the briar collecting.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I had no clue of crispness. I was totally clueless of what that was about. And when you see a softly produced Hagen-Renaker cat, a horse, compared to one that has crisp detail, where the ears are, tight, where the muscling in the face, not muscling, but the veining in the face is there, where the crinkles, the little sooty crinkles are in the cats. You see that, and then you realize what went into the piece. This was a hand piece developed by employees that have steps in production along the way. So when you see that and you go, this is what's possible to find out there if you know what to look for. So that was a very big eye-opener for me as my journey to collecting HRs progressed. It was something that I had never even, what's crispness? I mean, other than a potato chip that crunches, I didn't get it. But it made total sense when you see that many pieces. I mean, hundreds of pieces. I don't recall lots of Mustangs being there, though, now that I really think about it. I don't recall a lot of Mustangs, and there was only a few cutters. I don't remember seeing any horse and rider of the cutting horse. I don't recall those at all.
Would you say that this event, then, the closure of San Marcos and going and reviewing the inventory, that informed your ceramic collecting going forward? So if you were to purchase from Loza or any other subsequent model horse company, Poor Horse Pottery, etc., you probably started looking at it going, how's the detail? Like, did that become second nature to you? Like, I'm going to look at the eye wrinkles. Has this got eye wrinkles?
Yes, definitely so. Definitely so. Because as one plant, the San Marcos plant, closed, then the San Dimas plant became more of a subject for me because we didn't have two plants to choose from. So as going around looking for places, and when the specialties lines became available, that was a big one. Look at, do they hold detail? We knew that the miniatures held detail. We knew that the DWs held detail, but was the specialties line just as nice? Because it was bigger, it was bigger than our specialty line, our mini line. So the specialty line wasn't our DW line at all, but it was a bigger line, so you could make bigger pieces. And of course they did horses. So our first love being horses, we were excited about the specialty line. And some of those, it was definitely ones that you could look at and see, okay, this is different. These are nice. This is the way they do it. It wasn't a replacement for the designer workshop line at all, because being a larger piece, it could hold so much wonderful detail and so much. They felt a mare was really a mare, because you could see it in her eye and the detail in her face, the veining in the face, the veining down the neck, and the stallion was the same way. Maureen was such a wonderful sculptor.
She was.
It was like frosting on the cake. It was a wonderful relationship with them too, to bring out really nice detail.
Well, the next step up from specialties was the collector series. Tria is the one that Sue started the collector series production on. So
In San Dimas.
San Dimas collector series started with Tria.
Uh-huh.
So
Okay.
that is the got Sue kind of going, well, maybe I could start reissuing these, you know? It's like,
Right.
and how
Maybe there's a market
excited,
after all.
how
Yes.
excited was the collector world when that
Oh,
happened, and just
that was
mind-boggling. And then what made it even better was when she kept, you know, making more molds come out at the same time. So we all got just wildly excited.
Yes. We all got a chance
We
to.
never got
kind of
our
get-
matte glazes back because of the lead content.
Yes.
And so San Marcos was our last gasp at the true old lead glazes, the true matte, dry matte. Oh, and the
Dry
detail
matte.
would be just so mind blowing on those thin
Exactly.
matte glazes. So, oh, what an adventure you had! That's
What an
so
adventure.
amazing.
It was great. I want to say I hopefully have photos somewhere. I haven't come across them yet. I've come across the Karen photos, so I will send and share a few of those pictures with you.
Did Karen get any of the paper ephemera from San Marcos? Like, did she get any of the sales order lists or the advertising photos or anything like that she put in her collection?
She had some of the sales advertising photos. I don't want to say more than a couple of dozen, if even that, of the sheets of different ones.
Yeah.
We've shared those. I think, didn't you send some of them with the annuals?
Some of them were donated, yes, and they were sent out with Hagen-Renaker Collector Club annuals.
Yep.
Yes. So our magazine went in, and then the little flyer from HR, the little vintage piece went in with
it.
Yep.
She wasn't a big collector of ephemera because paper didn't matter to her as much. Paper mattered to me, and that's where it was always like she'd give me a box of stuff. Here, do you want to keep any of this? Do you want to keep any of this? And that's what started me really being an ephemera collector, because I know she would toss it. And so I was able to collect some of the stuff. She didn't per se have any then that I recall. It was after the fact when she finally took them back to her ranch and started going through them. And I'm like, she gave me the color flyers for them, and I'm like, oh, this is so cool, we can share them with our friends and stuff. And I kept them until, everybody that I knew kind of had them, so then it was natural to share them with the HRCC members and stuff. So
Thank you again.
That, though, no, that was all Karen, and I had nothing to do with that, other than I was just a gatekeeper, I guess. But she wasn't a big one at all, and I would grab the retail sales lists from her and such, because when she was done with them, Hagen-Renaker was so good about sending them out all the time, and she would always say, "Oh, here's another envelope of Hagen stuff for you." And so I was lucky enough to get that, but short of being anything that was really enclosed, they didn't send them to the dealers unless we asked for them. We were lucky enough too to be in the LA area, and the LA gift show, Los Angeles, of course, being Southern California, Los Angeles gift show. Hagen had a presence at the Los Angeles gift show, but at the time it was all miniature. They never sent any designer workshop pieces to that show. And Karen and I would go for the day and go down there and see. And that's where it kind of started the little lily pad on the minis that were tippy.
Yeah.
When they went to the gift show, they would do that. And I went with her for 2 or 3 years down there to see what they were doing. And there was a couple of salesmen that Karen knew at that time. And that was a good thing. I never saw Sue there, but they had a presence there. But it like all things after the fact, we wish that we could have gotten more ephemera to show us more. Wish we had saved those ads that were in the magazines that we see. I will never forget opening that meeting door room and looking down that long table of Hagen-Renekers everywhere. It was just
Oh my goodness.
something that it's like, you always want the pony for Christmas, so you look for the lead rope everywhere. When that door opens and you saw that table, it was just like, oh my gosh, look at all these Hagens and look at all these colors. And a definite lesson in learning the crispness and the colors and the shading and how they held their horses and painted their ducks and their cats and stuff like that. You could tell the painters that truly bring out the best in each piece that they painted because they knew the angles to hold the piece in.
Yes,
they did
enough to find at all of the factory eras. They did really well. They did really
yes. They excelled at it for being the pottery that they were. And it was so sad to see San Marcos close and losing that designer workshop line. But when you flip it, it's understandable for the way, the retailers just did not know how to really be careful. It was a fragile piece. It was, it was a piece that really needed attention, and they did not train their people enough to know, because I cannot tell you how many times I was at Knott's Berry Farm, and as they were wrapping a piece, you would hear that dreaded clink.
Oh.
And you would say, unwrap it, you just broke it. And they're like, no, we didn't. Please unwrap it.
Oh,
and sure enough, it would be broke.
That makes me so sad.
It was sad, but they always came through. The last piece I bought from Virginia's that was a designer workshop was a cutting horse. And sure enough, as she wrapped it, those splayed black back legs,
that's a
they had it just, it clinked, and I heard it, and I asked her, and she's like, no. And I'm like, please unwrap it. And sure enough, it was broke. And she brought over her floor supervisor. And the floor supervisor, of course, is going, oh, we'll get another one. Don't worry. And I'm like, yes, I have to worry. They're out of business now. But they came through. They found one. The salesperson found one, and I was able to get one.
That's
and she
wonderful.
even said, she said, I don't know where we're going to go. These are so popular here at Virginia's, which was in Knott's Berry Farm in Buena Park, California, that they dreaded the fact that it was a line that they were no longer being able to carry, because they had window displays of Hagen-Renekers, and we just loved going down there and seeing them all and really seeing the different colors, and it was wonderful.
It's a very California tradition to walk into Disneyland Emporium or Knott's Berry Farm, Virginia's, or Hallmark stores. Any mom and pop card shop, or even a flower shop. You walk in and there's the HR display next to the register, and it's a spinner, or a little shelf has been set aside for them. And Michael's craft shops. When I tell people that Michael's craft supplies chain used to have a Hagen-Renaker display in their dollhouse department, like there was like all the way up through the stoneware line in the 80s.
Yes. When I heard that I found Hagen-Renekers in flower shops too, next to the really decorative pots that they would send out with it. And that always surprised me. I even found a Beswick once in a flower shop.
So what was the last designer's workshop San Marcos you found in a store at normal retail in the wild?
I didn't find it. Somebody else found it and called me and told me about it. And it was a flower shop that had a brown mat mule.
Oh.
And she picked it up for me, and I got it. And that was pretty much the last one I remember. And then before that, right after that, I had checked the flower shops around our area, of course, and no one had it. But I remember getting one before that at a flower shop. My mom telling me that they had those breakable horses at the flower shop. So I guess it was a really thing that they used to do, that flower shops carried Hagen-Renekers as a giftware. That's what the ceramic potteries were giftware. And that's where one of the spots that you were able to sell the wares.
Those little planters, like the little nursery alphabet block planters with a little bear sculpted
Yes.
next to it. So I believe the Renaker family also had a hand in those, or at least a distribution partner in with us. So maybe that had some of the segue into the flower shop. Who knows?
Oh, yes.
Um,
That makes sense.
but very much Hagen-Renekers were a popular gift giving and home decor tradition for decades.
Yes. Oh, yes. Definitely so. My mom used to go to a department store whenever they would have a special occasion going on. She would go get a dress. And when she would get her dress, she would go upstairs, and at the escalators there was, excuse me, a glass cabinet, the half cabinet that, the retailer could put the wares on the top and you could see it. And it was full of Hagen-Renekers. And that's when I remembered, when I finally saw a grouping of Hagen-Renekers at Karen's house, I finally remembered what the DWs looked like, because I couldn't picture them, because I was always plastic, plastic, plastic. And I couldn't remember what a designer workshop looked like. And when I finally saw Karen's cabinet full of designer workshops, that triggered that memory right away. I remember the white roan lady. I remember the crusader in that glass cabinet at that department store. And it was like, oh my gosh, they used to carry Hagen-Renekers behind glass. You couldn't touch them. The sales lady would have to bring it out for you. But still, that's where they were.
All right.
And that's where my mom would let me stay while she went dress shopping.
All right. I'm going to ask your collector mind this question.
Uh-oh. Yes.
If you could go back to that day and you had your pick, what would you have brought home from the closure of the San Marcos Hagen-Renaker factory?
Oh, wow. That would be amazing. I on one hand, I would really want a horse, but on another hand, I would have maybe wanted a dragon. I wasn't so much into the colorful dragons because I was so much into the horses. It would have probably been the Arab family, one of the Arabs, either, Amir or Zara or Zilla, because they were horses. And I probably would have chose gray because, gray was colorful. White was too hard to keep clean. Palomino there were so many shades of Palomino. I always like a sooty Palomino, so I like a dark one. So it would probably have been gray had I been able to have a chance.
Okay, matte or gloss?
Oh, geez, probably matte. Probably matte. My mom being Scottish, I had Beswicks, so they were always usually glossy for the most part. So I'd already seen glossy, so I hadn't seen matte so much. And then given an animal, I would have chosen a buffalo. I don't recall Karen having any buffaloes or longhorns when she had that display at her work. But the buffalo is just so gorgeous. He's so buffalo-y. It just is like, I adore the buffalo. And of course now I'm all about the grizzly bear. So I don't recall seeing a grizzly bears out of her collection that she had at the work, because they must have been too big or too much to put together, because the bear was a two-piece.
It's really interesting that you mentioned she didn't have the longhorn, the bison, or the grizzly bear, because those are three extremely rare examples from San Marcos. So you just didn't. You don't find them, so maybe there just weren't any in the factory at the closure. So that kind of makes sense.
And I don't know, I'd have to look at a sales list to see if they were more expensive. Is that why people didn't order them as much? Why they didn't have stock on hand?
I think it goes back to the old rule that Jim Renaker said, which was that the horses were the top seller, and under that was the cats and dogs, and then birds below that, and then all the other animals, including the elephants they did at San Marcos.
Oh my gosh.
All the other animals underneath that. So horses were the big top seller. So things like a bison, a bear, or a longhorn would fall into the way at the bottom.
At the bottom. Right.
Not a lot of sales.
Right. Yeah. And then again, I think at that point too, Karen had already chose what she wanted to keep. So what she was showing us was things that she knew she wanted to sell.
Got it.
So
Okay.
she had already put the things, for instance, excuse me, she had different shades of Palomino Zaras. And I know those were not in that table that she was showing us. She had already put them into her collections and stuff by then. So we saw that after the fact. And that's the only one that comes to my mind so much because there was so much difference. There was so many variations of the Palomino when Karen had the collection, when Karen was able to go through the collection first and then show, her friends of what she had and what she had available to sell. Because that was everything that was on the table was for sale at that point.
Thank you so much for sharing this adventure with us and preserving this for hobby history. I wish we could have had Karen here with us to jump in and tell us more and tell us we were wrong. But
right, she would have had tidbits.
I would have loved that. But we are so grateful that you spent time with us today and provided some pictures. And I'm going to put in some sales list pictures and individual models that you called out to, like the Longhorn, the Bison. I'll stick those pictures in too.
Okay, sounds great. Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for bearing with my recall.
Oh no,
this
is all a team project, so we'll all pull together and find all of our references and photos for you. So
definitely so. And if I come across something one of these days, I will definitely share it so we can all have a little piece of that history that went with it. It was
wonderful.
It was wonderful. It was good times, and it was good to be able to kind of have the inner knowledge of having a person who really collected them for a long time and knew what to look for to bring out the best in the piece, share her hints about how to collect a really nice Hagen-Renaker piece.
She was the Sherpa leading you all up that mountain of
she sure was. She did
Hagen-Renaker collecting.
yes, that's in our hearts now for sure. Definitely. Yes, and thank you for continuing it on.
Oh, no problem.
We still have beautiful Hagen-Renekers to look forward to.
It is a wonderful calling, and I'm very proud to be able to keep it going for you all, and it is a joy every day.